roll very slowly while I get coffee.
Carlson,
Here.
Kirchling, Moore,
Here.
Ostrowski,
Here.
Westcott. Can't go any slower.
I got some. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
All right.
Item 2 on the
Forgive my indulgence. Is there anyone here who would like to be heard? I have no specific announcements this evening. I know some of us are on a time crunch, so we do have a number of very important items to discuss. Anybody like to be heard? Alders, mayor,
Just
half the police force?
11 and 12, mostly 11.
Okay. Members of the media? I'm trying, folks. I'm trying. You got new glasses. But good. All right, with that, we'll move to item 3, the approval of the minutes. Members of the Police and Fire Commission, you have the minutes from our October 3rd meeting in your packet. Leanne, again, has done an outstanding job. Always does. Motion from Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Carlson, to adopt the minutes as they are presented to the commission. Questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. With the permission of my colleagues on the commission, I'm going to move... Actually, I have an old agenda. Thank you. Thought I brought the new one. Sorry. My bad. With permission of my colleagues, I'd like to move 11, which is an update and the budget implications of an additional third ambulance to the EMS system up in our agenda. Seeing no objection, we would like to do that. A couple of announcements, and I know the alders may want to comment on this too, including mayor, and I'll let the mayor speak to this. It is my understanding the mayor has written an opinion piece or an open letter or whatever we call these things today. What do we call these things these days?
There were not enough sources cited for it to be a guest column, so it had to be an open letter.
Open letter.
How many sources do you need for guest column?
At least one.
Other than yourself? Oh, that was tactful. All right. So with that being said, I know the mayor has asked for a few minutes, but I have a couple of announcements. I want to thank all the persons, Johnson and Kneebone. They are maintaining a very valiant effort in front of the county. For those of you who have not watched, I have made a homework assignment. Yeah, I'm still doing that at the university. I want you to watch the county board meeting from last week, available on the city website. You can pick it up about 51 minutes in. There's a discussion on ambulance service in Grant, Linwood.
32 minutes, sir.
Yeah, a little earlier.
32 minutes to start. Don't mean to correct you, but
No problem.
I did your
32
homework.
minutes in.
I did your homework.
Uh-huh. I'm proud of you.
Who invited him back?
What's that?
Who invited him back?
Yeah, don't make them laugh, whatever you did with broken ribs. I want you to make sure you take an opportunity to watch the exchange with the county board and county officials. Alderperson, we appreciate your efforts in that area, as I mentioned in my note there. At some point in the near future, I think we will need to address again the inaccuracies that at least I caught going through it once. And it is unfortunate, as I've shared with a couple of you, when you have things presented as fact and no one there to say, that's not true. It stands as a fact. A couple of good examples real quickly. The county board was asked, had the city of Stevens Point, when it implemented its paramedic program, did it start with 2 paramedics or go 1 and 1? The reply was the city of Stevens Point, when it began its paramedic program, started with 1 paramedic and 1 EMT. That's not true. Those of you who were around, you were on the force, some of you firefighters, Michael, you were here. When we started this, as Jody reminded me, wherever my guns went. What was the date, Jody?
December 24th, 1998.
We started with 2 paramedics. We started with 2. I also enjoyed the comment about there's no clinical evidence to support that 2 paramedics are better than 1. That reminded me of the research of, well, there's no clinical evidence that jumping out of an airplane with a parachute is better than not jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. You'll get it in a second.
Either way, you hit the ground.
Yeah, either way you hit the ground, but one's safer. There is significant clinical evidence that proves the life-saving techniques that are accumulated with over 1,000 hours of education and continuing education are saving lives consistently. So I would like all of you to take a look at it. Our next agenda item, the letter, I'm hoping will at least solicit a response from the county to again reopen a positive professional dialogue, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Mr. Mayor, would you like to make some comments about the budget?
In regards to that, I sent out an open letter to the City Times, since they have a significant online presence. Too late for any of the print deadlines because the meeting for the county board is Thursday. So, and I spoke to the Gazette and let them know why I didn't send it to them. They
I
consider
sent them
it
a courtesy copy.
but it will be too late by the time the print edition comes out.
Okay.
So with your permission, I'll read it. I know I forwarded you a copy. It says on this, Thursday, November 9 at 5 p.m. in the Portage County Board of Supervisors will be considering a decision that will affect everyone in Portage County, and I don't believe in a good way. Since 2000, all residents of Portage County have had the advantage of a county-wide ambulance system. This has been contracted with the City of Stevens Point with 2 paramedics to provide award-winning and often modeled service. This is in addition to our extensive first responders that often arrive on scene first. The training level of each paramedic is over 100 or 1,080 hours at minimum before the continuing education that each participate in annually. I'll put a citation in there. Service benchmarks are set by a county group of experts in their fields, and those benchmarks are continually met or exceeded. And because of that 2 paramedic service, Portage County's survival rate for sudden cardiac arrest is significantly better than the national average. Even at the most recent contract negotiation, the county expressed complete satisfaction with the service they are receiving. We asked them specifically, is there any way you want us to improve? The answer was no. It is clear that the 2 paramedic service is the standard we hope to enjoy. Several months ago, the county began talks of improving the system, and the city stood ready to do whatever it took to assist in those improvements. Based on response times, maps were drawn up to show where an additional ambulance would be a benefit. That data showed the most effective location would be in the town of Plover. Members of the county began talks about the addition of an ambulance, but in the village of Plover, an area already served by a response time well within the benchmarks. Response time map data showed an improved response time of less than 2% to areas further from the county core. And I remember the meeting pointed it out after these maps that putting it in the village of Plover would only show an improvement of less than 2%. The county then chose to not seek quotes for this service, but rather negotiate directly with only the village of Plover to provide this service, but at a reduction in staff credentials down to only 1 paramedic and 1 EMT. Training requirements for an EMT basic are 185 hours. On top of that, the cost is about $630,000 annually for this reduced service. Every taxpayer in Portage County will be paying for that reduced service. With Plover and areas south being served now with 1 paramedic and 1 EMT, you will be paying more taxes to get less service. In addition to that, if the 2 currently staffed ambulances from Stevens Point happen to be out on calls, the next ambulance may be the 1-and-1 from Plover. So even residents of the city of Stevens Point could see that reduction in service if the 2 ambulances that we provide are already out.
As currently configured.
As currently configured. Everyone in the county will now see a lower level of service, but a marginally improved response time. In other words, they'll get there slightly quicker, but cannot perform all of the same functions that 2 paramedic teams are allowed to do. The county could choose to pay extra for the 2 paramedic level of service. Even with Plover, and that's what I'd hope they'd do. The small increase in cost, spread over the county's 70,000 residents, would be nearly insignificant. But if the county really had the best interest of its citizens in mind, they would seek the best service for the best price, rather than forsaking that duty and negotiating only with one entity at a reduced service level. What is the real goal here? Is it to continue to provide the best service, available service to everyone in Portage County, or is it to give Plover a contract because of some unknown reason and risk fracturing an award-winning, top-notch ambulance service? I urge you to contact your county board supervisor or attend the meeting on the 9th and voice your opposition to this expensive reduction in service and demand that the county contract for a 2-paramedic expansion to the system.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well written. Let me amplify a couple of key points here. And maybe it's more of a political question. I think it's important to note, Commissioners, that it was less than 2 years ago when the city of Stevens Point, a little over 2 years ago, I'll take that back, approached the county in ambulance contract renewal negotiations. And as part of that renewal process, we offered to put a third ambulance, for those of you who weren't there, in the village of Plover. We offered to do this. 2 years ago, we were told, and Michael, Mr. Mayor, you can fill me in or correct this if not your recollection. 2 years ago, we were told, as a county, we don't believe there's a need for that service, so thank you, but no thank you. And B, there isn't an awful lot of money in the system, so about the best we're going to be able to do is a little over 1%, Corey?
Yeah, 1.5.
1.5.
Okay, 1.5%. So 2 years ago, we offered to do this, and we offered to do it with 2 paramedics. And we were told by the county officials there was no need, no thank you. And as far as your contract, it's an increase of 1.5%. So imagine our surprise when less than a year later, they're out there negotiating for a system that is going to increase the EMS levy by 62%. A 62% increase in a tax levy should be a political nightmare. In my years in elected office, I don't think I ever proposed a 62% levy increase for anything. But it's a 62% increase in the EMS levy for, as the mayor just reminded us, less of a service. 1 paramedic, 1 EMT. Keep in mind, the city of Stevens Point right now, as a courtesy, as part of the contract, provides at no charge to the county. I mean, certainly there's a charge for the service, but we staff ambulances number 3, 4, and 5 that are not called for in the contract. The other component is the Rapid Response Unit, the RRU. Corey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's certainly something that we are not compensated for, but again provide as part of our obligation as a willing partner.
When we're able.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think it's interesting that they're adding $636,000 immediately to the EMS levy, a 62% increase for less of a service than we offered to do at less cost 2 years ago. So just for a moment, think of the political dynamics involved here. On the face of it, is illogical. No, I appreciate that's apparently where they're going. Now, the reason we mention all of this is we've heard from the mayor, and may hear from the alders here shortly, is the county is scheduled to adopt its budget Thursday night. Well, Thursday is a horrible day for me. The Board of Regents are voting on this little merger plan where we're getting all the 2-year campuses. So I don't know how much availability I'll have much before midnight the next night. But if any of my colleagues are available Thursday night to attend with the city delegation to support our alders who are there, Mr. Mayor will be there. It's at least important that those voices are heard. That I can't believe this could not become a significant campaign issue with elections coming in April. Who increases an EMS levy by 62% for less service? When you could have had it for basically less from the city. Alderperson? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After the county board meeting, when I made my motion to increase the levy to include 2 paramedics with that system, and it would have been $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's not significant when you start parsing this out.
Mm-hmm.
After the committee meeting and several days even after that, I'm hearing from supervisors who admittedly, and I won't say their names, were clueless to what was going on. One even said, maybe I need to start going to more committee meetings if this kind of thing is going on. So I think there's and you heard it repeatedly at that meeting, we have a strong committee system and everything has to go through committee, because everything I was trying to throw out on the floor was not following the rules. And they want everything to go through committee, yet they cloud things in the committee system. And what I was seeing were supervisors kind of caught off guard by this. They hadn't done their homework, or they hadn't taken the time to really understand it. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference on Thursday night. We'll certainly attempt, but just, what's happened since then, that's kind of what I have been hearing.
Thank you, and thank you for your efforts. Alderperson Ebon, I know you were at the Public Safety Committee meeting.
Right.
Is that where I was
Right.
watching video of you?
Well, I felt that it was kind of whistling in the wind, but I'm not going to go down without a fight.
Well, again, maybe I have spent too many years in public policy. I mean, just think about this on the face of it. 2 years ago, we offered to do this with 2 paramedics. We're told, no need, no money. It's stretching it a little bit. Yes, sir.
One thing that's important to note too is we have a third of the county board supervisors representing city districts.
Yeah,
There is no way
yeah,
that this is good for any part of the city.
yep.
Maybe if you live outside the city, you could justify a less than 2% improved response time. There is nothing good about this for the city. And we need to remind those city representatives of the county board who they are representing. They're not representing the village of New Hope or Grant. They're representing citizens of Stevens Point.
Are there any questions? Again, my purpose was just to say, I learned earlier this week from the mayor, this goes to the county board Thursday.
Thursday, and it's
At-
the contract approval.
At 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock is the board meeting.
So if any of
The
you
last
are,
item on the agenda, too. If you know anything about county board, it's the best place to put something if you want it to go
well,
quick.
I would encourage any and all of my colleagues who can attend to be there. If we weren't basically merging with the 2-year campuses, and we do this every 40 years, so I figured I'd better hang around with that. So,
You might not make the next one.
Can we,
is there an officer in the room?
can I call the president of the board of regents and maybe he can postpone it or something?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
You know,
Alderperson.
just whatever support, because I will be a lone voice in that front row, and so whatever support I can get, because I will be very vocal about voting against this, not because, and I think this is the one caution, is this isn't about not having service to Clover.
Right, right.
This is, and that's how they try
Very good
to
point.
twist things, and
Right.
I made a very strong point of saying that the other evening. This isn't, I support, obviously, we all want to have quality service when we're in need, whether we're in our homes or when we're traveling. That's not the case. So whatever backup I can get, Julie Morrow was very supportive. I think Chris Dobek could be swayed. I think we could sway a few people.
Well, in
Vinny?
Alderperson, we certainly agree with you, which is why I wanted to make the point that we proposed doing this with 2 paramedics 2 years ago.
And
Yeah, I mean,
that's my notes.
we absolutely
Absolutely.
think that expansion of the system with more paramedics to serve more people makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, but a 62% jump when it could have been less with the city is, I think, something they at least need to know. I was a little surprised that no one on the legislative body or the county board said what other vendors were considered and what other prices were available. I mean, that would have been a logical question for any elected.
I would certainly hope so, since many of them have a notion that the private sector is always going to be cheaper and better, so we should always go to them first. That wasn't even considered. And I don't agree with that notion, but certainly those people who have that sort of political affiliation to sort of blindly go into this without even tossing it out to potential providers, I think is unconscionable. So.
Well, and the other thing I would again remind our colleagues is, at least based on what I heard from the county board meeting, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, I had the direct sense that they believe the RRU, the Rapid Response Unit, is going to play a significant role in the response of this third ambulance.
Yes.
And again, I would stress that is not in our contract. If that's going to have a role, help me out here, Robert, they're going to have to negotiate that.
That's not in the contract.
Right.
That falls under operations, which the Stevens Point Fire Department has total control over.
Right.
There is some legalities that we're checking with the state about our medics working with their medics because
Under different licenses.
Different licenses, don't even know if it's legal. I mean, they did mention that at the, because I did watch
Yes, they
the
did.
county board meeting, it's very entertaining.
I'm glad you. I was the one sitting there. Everybody was just.
Do you have a functioning TV still in your office?
Yeah.
The tube would get a clicker and everything.
And there is some legality if that rapid response unit can even respond. And we have not been approached at all about sending it. There is no operational plan from Clover submitted to the state. They also mentioned that they can apply for another waiver. We contacted the state because the state EMS board ruled they have 2 years to get up to 2 paramedics. There's nothing stopping them from applying for another waiver, but there is nothing in the state, as that was stated in this meeting, to go to 1 medic and 1 EMT.
You know,
There's no move for that, and this is right from the head of the state EMS board. We got that response yesterday.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, I know you were there. It's my understanding that there was a comment made by Emergency Management Director Joe Brandt that the 2-year waiver thing, it wasn't a big deal.
He said it
Something like
wasn't a
that.
big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the fountain of truth.
Right?
well,
The state has
and,
not issued a written, the decision has not been issued in writing yet, but the writing is going to say that both services have to become 2 paramedics in 2 years.
well,
And that's what the state board ruled.
it's interesting to hear that, because I had the same impression that and maybe I had misunderstood, but I really had the impression watching that he was giving the impression that the electeds that this extension was just kind of and it was my impression that it was kind of a wink and a nod, no problem, we'll get it done.
That
If we
was my
needed it.
impression.
And then if we needed another one, we could do that. And then at some point, I think the comment was made, and who knows, the future is totally changing. We may not even need 2 paramedics. I'm going, wow, that was quite a jump.
But again, this goes all the way back to the beginning when this conversation started over a year ago, that this is a opinion of the county EM and our current medical director,
Uh-huh.
and it's their personal and political views. It
Mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with the state. And I believe the county's listening to them, as they should be. That's their so-called expert.
Not necessarily.
No, but that's who, they hired him to provide the county with information. To say the least that after watching over an hour of the video that some of the facts are played with very loosely is an understatement.
That was as polite as I've ever seen you.
It's the ribs.
I have issued an order in the fire department that any comment about this should come from Assistant Chief Gemza, because he's our expert.
Correct.
And plus, I've been off for the last 3 weeks because of the broken ribs, and I'm kind of violating my own order by speaking. Chief Gemza cannot be here for personal reasons today. But I will have a discussion with him tomorrow, and he's available to anybody that has any questions for him tomorrow.
Well, Alderperson, you now have some facts you probably didn't have last week.
I do.
We offered to do this 2 years ago, so they said no.
Yeah.
And we offered to do 2 paramedics, and they said no because they couldn't afford it.
For less money.
For less
If
money.
I may, Mr. President.
You may, certainly.
And don't quote me exactly on this.
I
At
won't
one
quote him
point-
exactly.
No, I think it was about 1 hour and 30 minutes into the video. Alderperson Johnson, or County Supervisor Johnson, was asked by Barry,
Kukowski.
okay, if anybody's talked to the outlying areas about the resolution that the Towns Association did. And the answer was, no. I want to go on the record that...
I didn't answer that.
No, you did not
No.
answer that, but that question was
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah.
I wanted that myself and Chief Gamza at an EMS oversight meeting offered
I was there.
to go to the Towns Association meeting and discuss the Towns Association's concerns, because they do have legitimate concerns. And we were directed by Chairman Dobrat, that is not our job, we're not to talk to the Towns Association.
Speaking of talking,
So,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know
I mean-
you're still going.
and then another question came up about 6 weeks later. Corp counsel from the county, and I don't remember her name, she's since left.
Lacey.
Lacey said, no, the chairman, and Chief Gamble talked to her, the chairman said, that's not your job, because there might be litigation, do not talk about it. So we offered to talk to the Towns Association, and we were told not to. So I don't want it misrepresented that the city of Stevens Point or Stevens Fire Department doesn't care about response times or the people in the outlying areas, because we truly do. Okay, and that's why we're fighting so hard for 2 paramedics, because everyone deserves the same level of care, whether you live in the city or the county.
That's
But the
it.
county
That's
told
it.
us not to talk to them. So I just want that out there, that don't blame the city, we tried.
All right, Commissioner?
And that's what I was just going to ask, Chief. And speaking of talking, you've made the effort. I think you have, Mayor, to talk. Has anybody from the county sat down and said, why? This is, have we had communication from the county back? Attempts have been made, I know, across the board. I'm curious about that. And also, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, as a city resident, I'm deeply concerned for paying more money for less service when I have a need, or my family has a need, or friends, that a one paramedic, one EMT could be responding to their homes. That's wrong, and that needs to be fixed.
To answer your question, Commissioner, outside of meetings, open meetings, no. There has been no exchanges in regards to this privately or through emails.
If I may again, because Commissioner Carlson brought it up, they keep talking about this one procedure, RSI.
Mhm.
And
Sure,
Director
sounds
Brandt
good.
said last year it was performed only 6 times. There's a lot more than that one procedure, okay? 2 paramedics on the scene, and again, like the mayor said, just the amount of training. Double check each other with medication. If you have a trauma patient, would you want to have 2 trauma surgeons, or a guy that's just starting medical school and a guy that just graduated medical school? That's the difference. They bounce ideas off each other. Is there any study-based facts? No, but common sense tells you, if you have 2 seasoned paramedics that are trained and they've been working together, they're going to be able to stop that patient from circling and drain, so you don't have to perform that procedure.
Okay, any other comments? Again, the meeting is this Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Can we get maybe a straw poll to see what we might be able to expect for participation in the meeting on Thursday? Are any of the commissioners able to make
Are
it?
any of
I
you?
have to call.
Okay, 1 maybe,
I will be.
2 for sure. Ron's going to check.
Hell, Jerry, you're walking proof.
What?
I said, hell, you're walking proof.
He's got the best
Yeah.
testimonial.
Well, that is a good point.
With that in the...
Mr. President, real quickly, if
Uh,
I could just ask that you issue an agenda notifying the public that a quorum of the Police and Fire Commission may be in attendance.
I'm sure Leanne would have done that automatically, but thank you.
We have so much faith.
She, between you and Leanne, you've totally kept me out of trouble here.
Yes.
All right,
Seriously.
thank you,
Gotta
Counselor.
take care of
With, again, the permission, since the mayor is still here, let's move to item 12, which is the updated letter to Portage County officials regarding our concerns that we have discussed about the emergency management director. Members of the commission, I'm not sure where Chief's going. You've had ample time to study the letter. I know it has been through multiple revisions, changes. You have in your possession, listed electronically, the final version of that letter. It is truly my hope, and I know many of you who have known me for years, I am the eternal optimist. Remain optimistic that this letter will serve as a catalyst to start a dialogue that will put us back into a mode where we can become partners again. That is the intent of this letter. I think Commissioner Carlson made a really good point. There's certainly, it is well known in the public arena of the concerns following the lengthy investigation from our fire chief and others that are cited in the letter. I felt strongly that if all 5 of us sign the letter, that I think is a good statement of unity, not just yet another letter from Westcott. Any thoughts or comments? What I'd like to do tonight is have Leanne circulate the final page, the signature page, have all of you sign it, and I will return that to you, and then you may distribute the letter.
Will this letter be too late?
Not if our goal is to moving forward to try and reopen the sense of dialogue. Your point's well taken. One of the electeds that's involved is a lame duck. But at least we're on record serving notice that we're willing to continue working with you, and at least, you know, as you used to say, just sit down and talk.
Right.
So with that said, Logan, you worked very hard on this, and I thank you. Do you want black ink on this?
Whatever other people prefer.
All right. Do you have any thoughts or comments while we sign here? This will also be distributed to all the alders, all the county.
Something above or below our name?
Always sign above.
Just making sure.
John Hancock.
Big enough so King can see it.
All right. Logan, did you want to add anything?
Considering the single-spaced nature of it and the length of the letter, I don't think there's much to add.
But you did, you covered it very well. I know we.
I don't know that I've ever had an attorney say that.
Is this just,
Yes,
just
Chief.
going to the county board members?
It's going to the county board. We're going to distribute it to all of the alders, and it will. I assume the media will want it, so we'll put it in the media circulation too. There you go.
I have a question.
Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, if I may suggest, if there's questions from the county board and the city council, maybe a joint special meeting.
Well, let's see where this goes. Let's see where this goes. Alderperson?
I'm just wondering if there's any value in sending the letter to the county executive candidates. Of course, one of them is county board supervisor, but this could come up as a candidate issue.
Sure.
And having them up to speed on a potential issue might be valuable.
I think that's a good idea, and
Very good idea.
I think it's a very good idea because, as the alderperson points out, one of the candidates will receive this letter. So if you would add the other 2 candidates to the distribution, that would be great. All right. Thank you, members. Thank you, alderperson.
You're welcome.
Thank you, city attorney. All right, let's return to the top of our agenda, the confirmation of the bills. Members of the Police and Fire Commission, you have the bills. Robert, you get to go first because you have reviewed them.
Yes, I have, and one nice thing about this time of the year, I can report is we're still within budget. Nothing outstanding jumping out. We're accomplishing quite a bit for not much money, and we still got money left in the budget, so my first request would be that I'd make a motion to approve both sets, the police and the fire department bills as submitted.
All right, I'll second that. Are there questions from my colleagues to my right here?
No.
Good, everybody okay? All right, the motion is to approve the bills for the month of October as submitted by the Police Department, Fire Department, and reviewed and approved by Commissioner Ostrowski. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
There's no questions. I generally don't have any questions because he goes over that with fine tooth comb.
Yeah, he's at the Police Department for hours. The next item, we've had the budgets for 2018 for both the police and fire department before us several times, both the capital and operational. I see Corey decided to leave when we got to the budgets. As I think all of you know, it is a required step for the Police and Fire Commission to approve these budgets prior to them being acted upon by the City Council later this month. It is a formality required by law. If we don't approve them, technically the City Council can't. So I will approve. Where's the logo? I wonder if we should do this in a separate budget for each. Did he?
Yeah.
All right.
Gary, you want me to grab them?
Let me just think for a second. No, I think we're all right. I think the motion.
Oh, they're back.
They're wandering in the hall.
I got to budgets and you left. I was proud.
Okay, yeah, that was intentional.
Yeah.
Would you prefer a motion to approve
Each,
separately, or can we put them together? We approve the fire and police budgets.
I think you can put them together, I don't see.
All right, with that, I will so move approval of the 2018 Police Department and Fire Department budgets as submitted to the Commission and reviewed by the City Finance Committee and Comptroller's Office to go to the Common Council later this month.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Kirschling. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 6, Fire Chief's Report, NEMS. Robert, you're up.
You now have last month's report, along with October's report. First, I want to thank and commend Chief Gunza, Chief Pagans. I was off for 3 weeks with broken ribs, and I've gone through open heart surgery. I'd rather do that than lose with broken ribs again. They stepped up to the plate big time, and they kept me informed the best they could. So I want to publicly thank them for the fine job they did. And the reports pretty much speak for themselves. Any questions?
I have none, and it's good to see you back. Bob has requested we don't tell any jokes, because if they've never broken a rib, you don't want to laugh. I will move approval of the fire chief's report, including the EMS report, as submitted to the commission as written. Seconded by?
I'll second that.
And by Commissioner Kirschling. Thank you, Perez. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Update on the chief's annual evaluations. We need to finish those before the end of the year. The 2 liaisons, where are we with the individual reviews?
I just have to type it up. I've met with Chief Skibba. I've talked to other people. We've gone over it. I just have to make
Okay.
it nice and write it.
I'm gonna sing.
Joseph? All right, so we could schedule a special meeting. I doubt that we'll get it done in November with Thanksgiving early, or maybe. No, wait a minute. I don't really want to do evaluations as part of a regular meeting.
Thursdays are free.
You're not available Thanksgiving morning?
All right, so let's just kind of hang this, maybe that first week of December, we'll do the regular meeting, and then maybe a night or two later, we'll do the evals, okay? Okay, Robert? Chief? You're going to Finland, though.
I will be back on December 11th.
Can
Okay.
you cancel the trip?
No, I'm going to see my brand new grandson. He's coming anytime now, so. And my granddaughter.
That'll be nice.
And I see my daughter and son-in-law. I'm
Yeah,
here.
but everything's slower in Finland.
All right, well, we'll shoot for
But
some time
December
after the
11th,
chief's return, then.
I'll be
okay.
back December 11th.
Yeah. All right. What's that?
So to
Don't
fist.
bring any lunatics with you.
All right, so we'll shoot for some time after the 11th, give them a couple of days to get reacclimated or acclimated back to the States. All right. Number 8 is the update on the police department relocation. I think many of you have seen the story in the City Times, which was the item I was thinking about earlier. Editor, Lucas, I like that story. Where's Chief Skimba?
He's over there.
Oh! What do you got to say for yourself, Chief?
I am fortunate to have a lot of great people working on this project. And as Chief Finn recognized, both the fire department and police department have some great employees, and hats off to Sergeant Cousseau, who is effectively operating as my general contractor, organizing all the subcontractors and diligently working. So
I suppose you want to raise, huh?
That plan is coming because he's got to clean out the drains on the roof.
Okay.
I figured I could tell a bad joke, and that way it wouldn't laugh. So anyway, as far as it's going, actually, we are tentatively shooting to be starting to move in the week of November 27th
Okay.
to start relocating our services there. Obviously, we will be getting out press information for when the records window will transition from our current location to the new
That's your last
location.
step?
Our last step will be our records window, our records personnel move, but patrol and the investigation bureau and all other services will be transferred first. If all falls into line, everything would move. Well, it's government, so it doesn't, but if all things happen properly, we would all move the week of the 27th. And so that's what we're shooting for right now. We have our subcontractors in there just resecuring areas and getting items moved over.
Will that building be secure enough for you to get in there in a couple of weeks?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We already have worked with Ascension with the parking arrangements and working with Director Ostrowski to potentially backfill the open area to find some revenue there operationally. So continuing to work with that, reaching out to entities such as the DNR, Portage County Child Safety, and various other entities like that.
Maybe I should check with our general contractor. Are we going to have a meeting room sufficient in there for the Police and Fire Commission where we could rotate this?
You should ask. Absolutely.
I do believe
You're the general contractor?
No, but I went through it.
In
I'm on
working
top of it.
in working with the mayor, we've
Yeah.
identified an area that would work actually quite well as a
Public meeting room?
public community room
The
potentially.
award?
and-
Committees, probably.
Is that okay?
Good.
Swimming pool?
I don't know about council, but committees.
So yes, I think very much so we'll be able to alternate locations and also host some things into our community, bringing in training, law enforcement training, possibly even fire department training, just a couple blocks away that we'd be able to host up to 60 people potentially, and so looking at that also.
I guess a question for you and the alders, have any other uses for the remainder of that building been identified?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're working with a couple of different entities, as the chief said, to see what the best fit is, what their needs are, and that, of course, will generate some revenue too.
Good, good. Well, good. Any
We wanna
comments
make
from
sure
my
any
general
uses-
contractor? Thanks, Bob.
We want to make sure any uses that we have in that building are conducive to what the police department is using it for.
Good, good.